In our first session, we almost had TPK from goblins. At the end of that session, we level up and arrive at the town where a paladin NPC joins us. The DM says, "I'll help you out since it looks like you're having a rough time." Our next session is to infiltrate a zombie bandit hideout under an abandoned mansion. At first it looks like another near TPK with the bandits hitting pretty hard, but then the DMPC pulls out his holy sword and smites everything in sight. Out of character, I know this is the Holy Avenger. I have talked about how OP this is for level 2, and the DM says, "Well, do you not want the help?" As expected, the DMPC shines every fight and we feel like backup dancers. This keeps going on until level 3, where we're all annoyed by this point. During the night, we plot to steal the sword. We stab him in his sleep, and the DM says PvP is not allowed. You can't murder Hobo, your ally, and steal his sword. I don't want to continue DMing for you guys anymore. Okay. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. I am Rune from Rune'sGuild, and this is another episode of RPG Horror Stories. So, before we have an even longer introduction, let's just go ahead and roll some posts. A while ago, I was playing in a short campaign, 7 sessions total, and we had a guest player for 1 session. He played as a weak old man who didn't want to help the party but gave us a quest. It was obvious from the start that he was in disguise and was going to turn on the party at some point. The guest player tried to be at the center of the attention for the rest of the session. He had an extremely long backstory that he aggressively forced into conversation to the point that he was reading it off of the screen to us. It was more or less a basic Batman backstory with the dead family, really not worth the 20 minutes of exposition. When we took a bathroom break in the middle of the session, the guest player cornered the only girl in our group while her boyfriend was in the bathroom. He pressured her into communicating over Facebook Messenger, assuming to hide it from his own girlfriend after the session. It was really weird and cringy. At the end of the session, he revealed himself to be an evil wizard and attacked the party. The paladin in our party was standing right next to him and hit him with a crit smite on the first round of combat, killing the guest PC. The guest player immediately looked at the DM and said, "Yeah, that would kill me. You need to do something about this." The group awkwardly laughed for a moment before we realized the guest was serious and upset. The DM nervously said, okay, we can just double your HP." What? I could see the paladin deflate after his epic round was more or less undone. Around a round later, a player knocked out the evil guest PC. Guest PC still seemed upset by this and started rolling hidden death saves. The party then cleaned up the minions over the next round. When it came back to the guest's turn, he said, "I rolled my 3 saves, so from the ground I cast the Michador to a place where you can't get to me." And that was the end. No satisfying conclusion. The DM got pressured and bullied by his guest friend and never corrected him. How did he roll 3 death saves in 1 round? Wait, I missed that. What was the point of him having to escape if the character is never coming back? Why was he so upset the party won when he was playing a villain? This is my first experience with a that guy player. Technically, he knew all the rules and roleplayed well, but he wanted to win more than anything and cheated and pressured the DM to get his way. He wanted to be the main character in the group he was a guest in. He was also a creep to the only girl in the group. I'm really glad he was only there for a session. Oh man, sometimes I don't even know where to start. That was just kind of cringy to read. Dude was upset that the heroes won. And I mean, like, why was that an issue? If he was only going to be there for 1 session, what was the issue? I mean, sure, maybe he wanted it to be more fun for them, like he wanted to, like, last longer than 1 round, but, like, at the same time, I mean, I'd be pretty stoked if we, like, beat the secret evil guy and 1 attack because the paladin critted and just decimated him. I mean, that just sounds fun to me. Furthermore, how do you play a wizard, right? It was a wizard, or whatever it was, a caster. How do you play a caster and then and not have any good skills? How do you not prepare any good spells for what you're already anticipating to be the combat? And if you had talked to the DM and it was supposed to be like, oh yeah, you're definitely going to be evil, you should definitely be a few levels ahead of the party, right? So I mean, like, if you're going to turn out evil and you're going to be the secret villain, me as a DM, I would have you level up a few levels above and just, like, roleplay like you're not that powerful. So that way, when, like, the fight actually does start, you have powerful spells to go into it. But I don't know, maybe this guy just didn't know what he was doing. Next post. This was a few years ago. I was a DM admin for a Discord Westmarches server that Matt Colville used to advertise in the lower half of his video descriptions. I DM'd for this woman, I'll call her Ash, in the UK, and 3 of her friends and a random that joined at the last second. I'll call him Churm. That's already that already bodes well for the rest of the story. as we could fit 5 players. Germ wanted to see how the game was going to work, so they joined 20 minutes early and we talked in the voice channel for a bit. The other players came in and we got started. Germ went silent as soon as everyone came in. I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. He seemed young, so maybe he didn't feel comfortable talking to women yet. I don't think that's how this is gonna go. So I made all tokens while Ash and her friends talked for a bit, and when I asked for everyone to introduce themselves while I put things together, Germ typed that their mic wasn't working. I felt bad for him for a bit. We've all been there, choked up when girls are around. We get the end of the game after the players fight. Somebody forgot a word there. We get to the end of the game after the players fight off a bunch of gnolls and undead. Bit of bragging, but it was one of my finest games I've ever DM'd. Germ finally pipes up and says, "That was a great game, Ash. Thank you for inviting me." I thought it was weird since Germ invited himself, but I smile and think, oh good, finally breaking the ice. Ash just starts screaming for Germ to go fuck themselves and down. What? Okay. I mute everyone for a moment and then pull Ash into a room and ask what's going on. Why is she acting like that to some poor kid? She tells me that as an admin I should know. I explained that I didn't and I was new, so for her to explain. Turns out this guy Germ has been harassing her for months in this server. So I look back at the logs we kept on a Google Doc. It's all the incidents and bans in the history of the server, and I find about 3 to 4 dozen reports of the same guy finding a way around the ban to get back into the server. He worms their way into every game she's in and then proceeds to try and DM his creepy fetishized fanfic of what they did in that session. What did I just read? I insta-banned Germ's account after seeing his newest DM. The line that will always stick with me is, "At her sweaty feet, squish the gnoll's head like a rotten watermelon." I don't want to read that again, and that's going to be with me forever too. I talked to Ash again for a bit, and I tell her I will find a way to keep them from going back into the server. We close down the server for a bit, and then re-interview everyone on the server. Have them talk to us for a few minutes to see if it's the same guy or not. Get rid of 3 or 4 accounts that are suspected to be clones of Germs. We open the server back up and make audio interviews mandatory to join the server. All this headache because this one guy could just not be a creep. I don't even think I need to talk about this one. That's just weird. That's just really weird. Oh, God. Oh, like rotten watermelon. Sweaty feet. Oh, man. Well, I think Ash said it best when she, yeah. Okay, next post. Time for the obligatory extra long story. So, content warning, uncomfortable stuff, and some transphobia. So, I had to drop out of my friend's game for a month after experiencing a traumatic event, including being admitted to the hospital, which they were all aware of. I had also recently come out as transgender, which may be a factor in this. In the campaign, last I was together with the group, we had just finished a dungeon that was the initial intro to the campaign and had been tasked with finding our way to a settlement. The campaign theme being building a settlement on a new frontier and facing the challenges it brings. The DM and I came up with an in-game explanation for my absence, that on the way to the settlement, I scurried off to gather wood when my character, a Tabaxi monk, had been kidnapped by a tribe of frog people before eventually befriending them, hunting with them, and freely finding her way back. That's pretty cool. There were 4 other players there. One was very reserved and innocent and barely spoke, shy guy. One was nice and played a goblin, G. One that had that guy energy. The other was a tech geek with cynical energy. That sounds like an awesome cast of characters. I can't wait to see who the bad guy is going to be. It's definitely not obvious at all. There was also some light jokes about traps and clear reference to the slur, which regrettably I pretended to be okay with. I myself had made those jokes in the past before coming out as transgender. I was the only trans person in the group. Toward the beginning of the session, the DM described me showing up to the settlement, when that guy, in character, put me on the spot angrily asking where my character had been, and refused them entry into the settlement. I thought maybe this was a quick joke, but no. D&D is a game about getting along and having fun. In real life, I couldn't be there because of extreme circumstances. In game, that guy was berating my character and asking where they had been, refusing entry into the settlement and preventing us all from continuing to play the session. For some reason, he was also clearly angry, out of character as well. I had recently been through some experiences with abusive people and was legitimately scared to directly confront it and call it out. That guy was being incredibly rude. The atmosphere at the table was so awkward, no one else was saying anything, they weren't sticking up for me, but they were clearly uncomfortable with this as well. My character tried to explain that they had been kidnapped and made the way back as soon as they were able. That guy then began to accuse my character of not sharing the loot from the dungeon that we did the last time. He began to insist that I hand over everything I had from the dungeon, and then downsized it to just one big coin that I had found. The thing is, my character literally had gotten the smallest pool of loot from the dungeon, and it had already been fairly divided months ago in game time and real time. It was clearly heavy-handed behavior that was driven by some real-life anger, not some in-game thing. I kept trying to gracefully move on, and that guy would seriously not have it. That guy then genuinely asked out of character if I thought I was right, and with some kind of bratty Anakin Skywalker energy. That guy pointed out that when we were in the dungeon, I had tried to pickpocket him for an item. I indeed did, but it was part of fun party interactions, and was not a serious slight against him in any way. He was clearly angry for some reason, and now finds reasons to justify it. So this guy is obviously that guy. First time somebody shows Anakin Skywalker energy flipping to the dark side, that's probably about the time that they probably get kicked out of the group. I already kind of know how this is going to go. I get the feeling there's going to be some slurs used later on, and that there's going to be somebody who is not going to be playing in this game very much longer if this game exists. Let's get back to the post. The DM was being very awkward at this point and not really looking at him. I looked to the DM for help, and he turned to me saying, "Remember everyone, the goal of this game is to get along," as if he was afraid to directly address that guy. The whole time I was genuinely trying my hardest to just move on with the situation, make it as non-awkward as possible, without directly addressing the weird behavior. I wish I had called it out, or just got up and left. I tried to play it off by having my tabaxi growl and wrestle with them, hoping to create a normal story moment within a band of heroes where they might tussle, or sometimes over disagreements. It was an earnest, friendly attempt to play off the situation and give that guy an out. I had full non-lethal intent, and that guy began trying to deal damage to me and had to be talked down by the party and the DM. That guy then self-righteously asks, "How do you think I'm taking the situation?" So I said, "Very poorly," and finally the nice goblin guy agreed and backed me up. Cynical geek guy, however, said that we were both being immature and that I should compromise by handing over some of my loot. I was put into a situation where I would have to degrade my dignity to continue the session. I would have to act submissive to a domineering and angry presence in order to just continue the game. My character had just been kidnapped, escaped, and managed to rejoin the party and was now being threatened by them. The session couldn't move on unless I acquiesced because everyone was too awkward to say anything. I repeatedly tried to put the matter aside as gracefully as possible without directly calling out that guy out of character. I think that guy really clearly would not concede unless I acted submissive to him, without any real good reason for it. This was compounded by in real life literally having escaped an abusive ex recently before being a major part of the reason I was away. I was incredibly uncomfortable at the table, and I was sincerely afraid of this angry childless dude. Eventually, with the DM intervening, my character was able to enter the settlement without handing over the loot. I believe my memory is a bit foggy. No one talked about it after, but everyone decided to end the session early, unspoken but clearly because of these events, and it had left everyone uncomfortable. I contacted the DM afterwards, and they apologized, saying they were embarrassed to let it happen at the table, and that guy's behavior was definitely heavy-handed. That guy remained in the campaign, and I left. That guy sent me a message saying they hoped I'd stay in the campaign and have fun, but they very clearly were avoiding the issue and not apologizing. It felt like veiled joy and pretending the issue didn't exist. Unfortunately, I just replied with niceness in return and didn't confront them. I pretended right along with them. In context, I had just experienced serious abuse in real life and was afraid. Now, I'd directly call it out. But anyway, as a friend and a player trying to have fun, I no longer felt safe at that table. We were young, immature nerds. I can see how it happened. I understand the awkwardness, but it seemed clear I'd have to deal with more than that guy behavior in the future. It had never been that bad before, but there were red flags in the past campaigns. I suspect transphobia played an element in this as well, due to other things. Well, to talk about that one, all I really have to say is some people are jerks. I'm not sure if there was any transphobia necessarily in that guy with what he was doing. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, because he seems like a very immature man-child. And it's not really my place to, I suppose, judge other people. But, based on what's written here, yeah, he was definitely in the wrong, and I would definitely say he should be the one out of the group. But it looks like it worked out for the best. OP found better friends, OP found a better campaign, and is doing a lot better now, it seems. So yeah, I suppose that is everything I have to say. If you enjoyed, give a like, hit the subscribe, or do whatever you want to do. If you have your own horror stories, add them to the comments below. If you don't, good job. And if you can't think of anything else to say in the comments, go ahead and just say go ahead and just say rotten watermelons for me. Okay, that's it. Bye.